Hey, welcome back. I have just returned from my trip to North Carolina, been taking a few days off to kind of regroup and get my body adjusted to the humidity of Panama again. But I did notice on this recent trip that some of my expectations of going back to the US were very disappointing. Had nothing to do with the people or the places. Had a wonderful time, and we'll talk about that. But it did have something to do with the fact that what I've become accustomed to has changed. I really think something I don't hear a lot talked about is reverse culture shock. Let's dive in. Welcome back, travelers. You've landed at the Expat Cafe, and I'm your host, Aoife. Join me as we spill some tea on living abroad. So today we're just going to briefly talk about the fact that I traveled back to help my husband and support him with what was ostensibly a very sad occasion. We had to inter the ashes of his oldest son who passed in February. It was a beautiful celebration of life. And I think Charles's ex-wife Trish deserves a lot of credit for making that a beautiful ceremony. One thing I wanted to really talk about was the culture shock that I felt. I did not feel like I was going to my home country. And part of it is I wasn't going back to Texas, which I always consider home, but I was in North Carolina, which is more where my mom lives, where Charles is from. I have a passing affiliation with North Carolina, but not so much that I consider it home. I don't even consider Kentucky home, and that's where I grew up. I'm more of a Texas girl, I admit it. Wasn't born there, got there as soon as I could. But yeah, it still felt really foreign flying back into the US. And I had to think, why is that? Well, one, as soon as I disembarked from the plane, I realized that I was on an entirely foreign timetable. Everything is rush, rush, rush. Hurry up and wait. Go faster, do this, do that. And I guess in 3 years, I had acclimated to the Panamanian way of just being a little more tranquil. Tranquile, mañana. And it doesn't mean things don't get done. It just means you don't fret about them as much. And that was kind of interesting to me. I realized that I was the anomaly because when I left, I was just as hard charging as everyone else. And now that I was back, these little roadblocks would come up and I'd say, don't worry about it. It'll work out. Don't worry about it. We've got time. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll do that again. Or if we don't get to that, it's no biggie. We'll do it the next time. And I realized that my husband's having to live a foot in both worlds. And my total laid back, tranquille attitude was driving him nuts because when he is working in the States, he's on the hurry, hurry, hurry. And I was on the mañana, mañana, mañana. So I know that kind of startled him to see how far into the new lifestyle I had gotten. I think the other thing that really got me was prices. Holy moly. Before I visited my mom the first time, my son, Gabe, and we stopped at a farmer's market and we got 2 baskets of fruits and vegetables. It was $80. And I was so surprised because those same vegetables in Panama would probably be $15 to $20. It was a sizable amount. There were a fair amount of preserves. But good grief, I wasn't expecting the price. And then we went into the grocery store. Premier protein drinks, the little 4-pack. When I left, I thought those were too expensive at $8.50. I was buying them, but it was always a painful thing. Now it's $14. Those things have almost doubled in price. What the actual heck, America? What are you doing? It was phenomenal. And I found myself wondering, how do people on regular wages survive? I personally would not have been able to retire early if I had stayed in the States. I would be having to work in order to afford the pricing structure. And that made me sad. And so, yeah, I think the culture shock, the speed of everything, the very little taking time to smell the roses, and the pricing, 2 of the biggest. Didn't notice too huge of a difference between gas. Fuel or petrol here is sold by the liter, and it is fairly expensive. I think that's just true the world over. It was pretty comparable to what was in North Carolina, so I wasn't too worried about that. My son was very grateful for the gas prices in North Carolina because he is currently stationed in California, and quite frankly, the prices out there are even more insane. So to him, coming from California, North Carolina was like, wow, I'm saving money. And to me, coming from Panama, North Carolina was like, oh my gosh, what has happened to the pricing structure in this country? It was an interesting juxtaposition of two different viewpoints. And I just found that to be a little unsettling. I almost felt guilty every time I had to go to the grocery store with my husband because I really had trouble putting down money for some of the things I get here at a very reasonable price. If you live overseas and you've encountered what I encountered, or if you understand what I'm saying, or even if you have a different view of this, um, drop me a comment and let me know because whoa, I felt unprepared for what I saw there. And I shouldn't have. I watched the news. I'm not living under a rock, but I don't think the reality of what life is like back in the United States really hit me. And so I found myself getting homesick for Panama very quickly. Now, I got to spend wonderful time with my mom. And I got to see her more than a couple of times during the trip. She was an hour and a half away. It had been almost 8 to 10 years since we'd physically visited. Now, we do a lot of video chats, talk every week, so it's not like we're out of touch. But I had not physically been to her area of the world for almost 10 years. And so there was a lot of catching up to do. And I got to see my little brother, who, as you can tell from the pictures, is not so little. It's really weird to point up and say, that's my little brother. And I got to see his daughter, Ashley, and I got to meet a few other people from the area, although a lot of people weren't around, so I really got to focus on time with my mother. Now, she's 76 and working out her knee because she just had her knee replacement, but I got to tell you, she's still Spitfire. She's sharp as ever. She's sassy frass, man. She is total sassy frass. And she could give a lot of these little sarcastic girls on TikTok a run for their money. And she wouldn't be able to work a camera, but she could do it. I think Gabe got to see his grandma in a new light because he looked at me when we were going home the first time and he goes, Mom, grandma's got some sass. And I said, yeah, buddy, you don't know what it was like to grow up with her. And yeah, it was just, I loved it. One of the other things I got to do that I absolutely adored was meeting again the children of my friend and longtime bestie, Tracy. They live in the Boone area, lovely, secluded, wooded area. And Tracy and Terry are two of my favorite people. She was my roommate in high school, and we became best friends. And it was a very tough type of time period because we were living in a boarding school. And so not only were we trying to navigate growing up, we were trying to navigate the religious structure of the boarding school and still figure our place out in the world. Over the years, we've always kept in touch. Now, is it daily touch? No. But Tracy's one of those friends where when I'm with her, I feel like no time has passed. And I know that she and her husband love and accept me as part of their family. And so I always feel with her like I am truly going home. And oh my gosh, the children are just thriving. But with Tracy and Terry as parents, they could do nothing else. It was neat to see. And Chef Terry, as you can see from both the video and the pictures I'm posting, he totally laid out a spread that made us super happy. And bibimbap, come on, man. The dude can cook Korean food. But yeah, so seeing Tracy and Terry was a highlight of the trip. So this trip was bittersweet. I want to go ahead and wrap this up. But I did want to ask if any of you have experienced the same thing. When you go back and you love seeing the people, but the area and the lifestyle just seems so foreign to you that you don't feel like it's home anymore. I truly felt like Panama was my home. And at the end of 2 weeks, I was aching to get back there. Now, I wish my husband had been able to come with me, but he doesn't get to retire for about a year and a half. Patiently counting down the days and looking forward to it, and always love visiting my husband. So, For those of you that were asking me behind the scenes where I was, that is what I was doing. I did purposely not jump back into the YouTube thing or the blog thing or the Facebook thing until I had kind of gotten myself together, because the food that I'm used to eating here in Panama is very, very clean. The food I was getting in the United States, even the diet foods and the healthy foods and the fruits and vegetables, did not feel the same, and my system revolted. So yeah, it's taken me 4 or 5 days to get back into running and not feel so tired and feel energetic again. But just know that after 3 years in Panama, I did not feel like I was going home. I felt like I was really just going to a place. Panama is my home. And so, yeah, have a great day.